let's check in with our goals. Mark, you were going to continue building ships and work on chapters 2, 3, and 4 in your work in progress.
Yes, to both. And I'm pausing to write an article for a magazine my editor has asked me to do. So
Nice.
I'm back in writing
Good.
and putting hull planks on.
Putting hull planks on. We'll have to see the finished product.
Next
All right.
class.
Next. All right. Diana, you were going to do more polishing of your essay and kind of keep your writing routine going.
I did that. I didn't do a lot, but I did keep it going. So that was a win.
Good. I hear you. All right. John, you were going to work on putting some imagery into your writing. Any luck?
No, not really. I tried.
You gave it a good effort.
Yes.
Okay. Well, good. Thanks for giving it a try. Lizzie, you are going to keep reading. Do some more reading. Yeah. That
Yes.
good?
Sorry, my son just kicked me out of the kitchen. He's
Oh.
like, I don't want your class. I'm like, whatever, Roger. Anyway, so he kicked me out unceremoniously. So I'm so sorry for the movement here.
That's okay. Sorry, I didn't realize.
did read, and Signy and I, we actually wrote.
Yay!
Big surprise, yes.
Exciting.
But Signy showed up at my house, so I had no choice.
Good
So
sister.
we did. We worked for hours. It was
Oh, how
great.
fun! That's great. I love to hear that.
Mhm.
I'm envious. I want a Signy and a Lizzie in my life. You know. Rabia, you were going to work on your plot. How's that going? Oh, you're still muted.
I didn't work on the plot because I had all these comments that I started looking at. And so I
Uh-oh.
started taking those in and really thinking about where to go and what to do. And that was good.
Okay.
And I also worked on learning how to do metaphors.
Oh, excellent. I love that. Susan, you were just going to keep writing.
Well, I did, kept writing, and I started working on point of view, and I think I've kind of gotten it a little bit more
Dialed
together.
in. Good.
So I redid some stuff.
It's a tough one. I feel for you. I feel for me too.
Yeah, I did, 'cause you're gonna have to read it.
No, that's not what I meant. I was just going through. So I had worked with a developmental editor for one of the novels that I'm working on myself. And I was looking through her notes today, and she's like, I think of myself as being so on top of point of view. And there's all these notes about like, oh no, you're filtering your point of view here. And I'm like, damn it. See, it's not as easy as I think. So just so you know, I do have to practice what I preach. Sharon, you were going to take the feedback and rework at least 1 or 2 chapters?
Yes, well, I did take the feedback and I reworked the chapter that I got the feedback from. But funny, the way that it works is that you can't see the things that other people see. So when I thought, oh, I will just look at chapter 2, keeping chapter 1 in my feedback, it wasn't as easy as you might think. But I did that. I did the incorporation and made the changes and recommendations from everybody. And then I finished chapter 3. So
Great.
yeah, so did a little writing too.
Good work. Signy, you were going to keep working on your writing schedule. We're working on a writing schedule. How'd that go?
Great. We've had a lot of distractions lately, and I feel like we, sometimes it's hard to get back into it when you have distractions going on in life, which everybody has. And so we did do that. We're working on a schedule, and we wrote, and that was really great. And we're finding, like, if we both sit with our computers and have the doc on Google Docs, we can both, sit there and kind of.
Oh, that's smart.
So that was really good. And then I reread Ursula Le Guin's The Left Hand of Darkness, which I love. And it reminded me how a story can be so many things, because she's got this way of, like, it's philosophy about life, and it's social commentary, and it's progressive, and it's a great science fiction story, and it's all these things. So, I just found that really inspirational. Like, her genre is, in that case, science fiction, and yet it does so much, so much more. So
really
that was cool.
Awesome. Thank you. Good reminder. I need to revisit her. She's so wonderful.
Oh, good.
Kelly, you were not here, but would you like to report on your writing life at all?
Sure. Yeah, it was good. It was busy. I had gotten notes, the next round of notes back on my manuscript, so I basically just cranked out a new
Cranked them out.
last round.
And they weren't painful edits. They were.
No, it's at the minor.
Oh, good. That's the best phase. So you have a book coming out, right?
It's gonna go out on submission in the
Oh,
next couple.
so you're working with your agent on it.
Nice.
Excellent. Well, all the fingers crossed for you. That's so exciting.
Thanks.
Is it a nonfiction or a fiction manuscript?
Nonfiction.
Well, keep us posted, okay? That's
I will,
exciting.
yeah.
We want to say we knew you win. All right. So I think I decided to settle on sentences as our last workshop after we discussed it last week.
Oh,
And I
I got
haven't-
a quick question.
Yeah.
Just curious as to which class you recommended for Cameron.
She signed up for the Scene Stealer class.
The one I'm taking next?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
I gave her both links, and that's the one she picked.
All right.
So, yes. So, sentences that I'm having difficulty forming at this moment. This time of day my brain has been less than cooperative lately. I feel I'm having deja vu. Like I feel like I've taught some of this to you guys before, but I think it might just be that I'm teaching multiple classes. But there is a possibility that some of it we've discussed. I don't know. I guess you'll just stop me if you're like, Jordan, we've done this before. Oh no, PowerPoint quit on me. Hang on. Always at the point of opening it up, something happens. Okay, let's go here. Let's go here. Sorry, bear with me, folks. I don't know what happened. Talk amongst yourselves.
Well, John, how
pressure.
did things turn out at the doctor?
No, nobody wants to talk about that. All right, I did
I
find it.
loved it.
The doctor. Who doesn't love the doctor? Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay, so when I teach this workshop, I feel like I'm teaching the tip of the iceberg. You know, like there's just so many aspects of sentence level attention and attention that we can bring, that this is just literally, you know, a fragment of what you can possibly do. So keep that in mind. I'm not suggesting this is all you should consider. It's just, I feel like these are great starting points to look at things and to keep awareness. So one of the things that I do see often, especially in manuscripts that I work with, is that, you know, someone will have a great plot and great characters and even good scenes, but at the sentence level, something is missing or there's overwriting. So there's either too much or not enough of something. And it really does make or break the story, you know? And I don't know about you, but for me, the stories that really resonate with me long after I've read them, or even while I'm reading them, are the ones that have a good story and a careful attention to language. And that's part of that, what shapes that voice that is, you know, so prized and all of that. And voice is very much a language issue. So if you hear agents and editors say, oh, we're really drawn to voicey stories, like, what does that mean? It means the style of the writing. So we'll talk about that. Some of the things that I will talk about today that make or break good sentences are word choice, sentence rhythm, you know, prose that's kind of flabby or doesn't feel like there's been any care given to it, careless repetitions as opposed to purposeful stylized repetitions, sentence length, so too many short choppy sentences in a row or too many long-winded bloated sentences in a row will, of course, make the reading feel jagged in some way, or kind of like you have to stop and take a breath. So I realize I have like 5 slides on verbs for some reason, because I love verbs and they're so important, but the rest, they're not all like this, but I do like starting here. And I know this is where I'm having a flash. We did do some verb thing, right? We worked on our verbs. What was the context of that? What were we talking about? Does anyone remember?
Well, making them interesting.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know. We were talking about what to cut, right? It was like that. Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, so some of that section might be a little bit repetitive, but I'll go fast through it.
You were just saying packing a punch with your verb choices and substituting boring verbs for
Yeah,
more.
okay, because I think that I do have a couple of the same slides in here. That's why I'm having that deja vu part thing going on. Anyways, as you probably know, verbs are the muscle and the energy of your sentences. They give it life. They're the ones that also tell us what they refer to the action. They tell us what the characters are doing. So they're very important to help us see what the character's doing in the scene. And of course, you all know what verbs are: bounce, kick, sing, run. And then there's also verb tenses to consider, which we've talked about, present tense versus past tense. A lot of you are kind of grappling with these issues. And you can switch verb tenses between chapters and between scenes with different characters, for instance. Anytime you're switching verb tenses, it has to be very conscious. Like there's a reason you're doing it. You don't want to be moving in and out of verb tenses within the same scene or chapter, or the reader is going to get confused. So, it seems like a small thing, but I see this a lot. So simple, past tense, he walked, I heard, they saw. Present tense, he walks, I hear, they see. The thing about present tense is it's a very immediate tense. So sometimes if your content is intense, tense is the word of the day. If your content has a lot of stuff going on and it's intense, you might want to consider, do I really want to put this in present tense, which is so immediate that it might feel up in the reader's face too much? Or maybe that's what you're going for, is you really want the reader to feel everything in this really visceral way. Present tense is a good choice. And it's really just about consistency and then asking yourself, what is the effect I'm going for? Past tense, remember, it's just that the verbs are in the past tense. It doesn't mean the action happened in the past. And that can be a little confusing at times, but you can still be writing about, he walked into the room, he turned on the light. It's happening now. It's just that the verb tenses are, and that can be a little tricky. And this is the slide I think you guys saw last time. Making your verbs interesting when possible. And not everyone, if you have 700 verbs that are all like super interesting, I think at some point they start to like glare at the reader, but occasionally using ones that are a little off of the obvious ones that you might have been striving for. So rifled, harvested, swabbed, you might have a little more interest going on in the texture. That's how I think of it. I think of all this as creating a texture to your writing. And then I want to remind everybody that you want to avoid as much as possible passive voice. And that's when you end up using conjugations of the verb to be. So am, was, were, are, will be. There, of course, there's a time and a place for all these verbs, but there's a lot of phrasing where you say he was going instead of he went, or I can't think off the top of my head. I think there's a meme that's like, if you can add the phrase by zombies to the end of it, it's probably in the passive voice. He was going to this, no, he was walking to the store. I don't know. I'll have to find it again. It might not be by zombies, but it's something about zombies. Anyways, it drives home the point about passive voice being slow, dense, making the reader slog through. And additionally, and another way to think about that is here, I've got this, if you're using phrases like he was mad, she was cranky, that's not a very effective way to show behavior. So if you've got phrases like that, you want to root them out and see if you can instead use behavior to show those things, show someone being angry. We talked about imagery last week. Use an image, a sensory image, a visual image to convey that same information. A few other things that we'll talk about. I think I also did talk about musicality, but that's okay. I feel like at least one of you wasn't here, so you get this lesson. I always come back to that language was a heard medium before it was a spoken one, right? So I feel like even when we're reading, I don't know, maybe this is not as common as I think, but how many of you, when you read with your eyes, kind of hear an inner voice? Do you know what I mean? Like you almost hear yourself reading it aloud. Yeah, I know. And I know it might not be everyone, but I think a lot of people hear it. So it is, even though you're reading with your eyes, you're still hearing it in that inner voice, which I think is really interesting. So whether or not you want to go with musicality, I do believe we should create rhythm with our sentences, flow, that there should be an energy. So when a reader reads it, it's not like riding in a car over some bumps, boom, 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 right? But rather it's a smooth ride. everything we're doing as writers is we're trying to create a seamless experience into which the reader sort of slips without having to think about it. So they're just
What is-
in the story. What's that, Mark?
What is rhythm? Can you amplify on,
Well,
on
I think I
rhythm?
have a few slides, I think. For me, when I start talking about sentence length, and there's some slides to that effect, I'll show you what I mean by rhythm.
Okay.
So it really has to do with how the reader reads the inner cadence that comes with a certain sentence length, or some other ways that you might create rhythm and musicality are through certain alliterations, repetitions, juxtaposition. Juxtaposition is where you sort of put two things side by side that are not necessarily alike, or even might be opposites. And they have that has the power of highlighting it. So that can be with word choices, or it can be with imagery. Here's kind of an alliterative example from Maya Angelou. It's a repetition of sounds, alliteration, right? So where you're pairing either similar sounds, or you're kind of contrasting similar sounds. Up the aisle, the moans and screams merged. Moans and screams merged. Lots of M's and S's in that. With a sickening smell of woolen black. Sickening smell of woolen black. Clothes worn in summer weather. Worn in summer weather. We've got WSW. Green leaves wilting over yellow flowers. There's a lot of, do you hear the alliteration in this? So similar word sounds that create a kind of texture, for lack of a better word, to the sentences. And I would say intentionally too. I even think moans and screams merged sounds like moaning. So there's a little onomatopoeia in here, which I also will describe in one of my favorite slides later on. Another thing to think about is word repetition. So normally I suggest that you not repeat words, right? You want to look for redundancies, which we'll talk in a second about. But I also think sometimes you can be consciously lyrical or poetic, and it doesn't have to be every sentence. It could be once in a while. And of course, normally I wouldn't use James Joyce as an example, far from contemporary in his style, but I love the music of this sentence. His soul swooned slowly as he heard the snow falling faintly through the universe, and faintly falling like the descent of their last end upon all the living and the dead. I can't even tell you why falling faintly and faintly falling is so lovely to me, but it is. And I feel like what these things do is they force the reader to slow down and go into this moment that the writer is describing. And of course, we've got alliteration again. His soul swooned slowly. But it's like, for me, it brings me almost like I'm inside, those little things you shake with the fake snow. It puts me inside a little bubble of snow, faintly falling, falling faintly. So you can achieve some cool effects with language. Now, I don't expect anyone to start popping these out if this is not your natural style. I think more than anything, I want you to just start looking at your sentences when you're at that stage of revision, which you might not be right now, and looking at how they flow. Do they feel right? Do they have that kind of nice texture and rhythm? When they are stacked together in a paragraph, does the paragraph have a nice flow? And the best way to find this out, of course, is when you read it out loud. I know I read this slide before, but I'm going to read it again because I love it so much. So another way to think of rhythm or musicality is using, customizing your sentences like to sound like what you're trying to describe. Again, back to that idea of onomatopoeia, which is a miracle I can say that word. The world seemed huddled and hushed, and her crunching steps cracked loud as axe wax. So we've got huddled and hushed. The soft consonants create the soft sounds, and then the hard consonants create the loud sounds. And it works beautifully. I certainly couldn't do this in every paragraph, but once in a while, especially if you're drawing the reader's attention to sound, that would be a good time to really work on making the sounds sound like something instead of she heard a bell. Like I say this a lot in my manuscript editing process, like, okay, she heard a bell. What does a bell sound like? It's, a resonant ringing. So you want to, instead of keeping our attention on the hearing, she heard a bell makes me, the locus of perception is on hearing. I want to hear the sound she's hearing. Same thing with other senses. She smelled bacon. Okay, what does bacon smell like? The pungent aroma of sizzling meat filled her nose or something. I think I have a slide to that effect. So I'm kind of getting off topic here, but And I'm sorry this jumps around a lot. Another thing that often happens is this thing called pronoun ambiguity, where especially when you're writing in, with the same pronoun, you're starting your sentences, let's say, with he or she over and over again. And then maybe there are two people in the sentence and they're both she's, and then it gets confusing about who the heck you're talking about. For example, the adults arrived before the kids were ready. Julia was glad she'd had the foresight to feed them before that. Now, obviously, this is a bad example because there's a time period thing going on here, but who is Julia feeding is the question. She had the foresight to feed them, kids or adults. So revised, Julia was glad she'd had the foresight to feed the kids before the adults arrived. In the revised version, then we don't have any question about who them is. And the same thing can go if you have 2 or 3 instances of he or she or they. So really looking at the clarity of your sentences. I would say I often correct things like it or them as being vague or unclear as well. So not just pronouns, but like, this was it for him, or it was the best. And it's like, wait, what was the best? Make sure you're clarifying what those things are. Don't assume the reader knows. Now on the opposite end of beautiful stylistic repetition, which I liked in James Joyce, oftentimes we just end up using the same word several times within a paragraph or a page. And it has that same effect where the reader goes, oh, I don't know why. It just it's like skipping stones or something. Your mind catches on it like a snag. Oh yeah, there's that word again. There's that. So unless it's intentional and you're trying to repeat it, you want to kind of pull those things out, so the bad example, just the thought of school gave me a stomachache. I didn't want to go to school. Bad things happened to me at school. So we could revise this. Just the thought of school gave me a stomachache. I didn't want to go. Bad things happened to me there. So simple. And then redundancy, which also you can have repetition of words, but then you can have redundancy where you say something in the same, slightly different way, but you're saying the same meaning. So it can be subtle, like he was popular with the people. So popular assumes with the people. You might not need to say that. Or it can be more overt, like he kicked the door of his closet because he was mad. I'm so angry, he shouted. You can probably get rid of one or both of those things and find a way to not repeat the information. I feel like there's 2 schools of thoughts. Like there's one school of thought that's like, make sure your words are not too big and loud and stand out so you don't, pull the reader's attention out of the story. And there's the other approach, which is like, make sure your words aren't too boring so that you hold the reader's interest. And I feel like more than anything, it's about finding fresh ways to say things, because we're all writing about things that are, human condition. These stories have all been told before. So how do we tell them in ways that's fresh and new? And a lot of that has to do with the phrasing, the imagery, the word choices. Everyone, when we talk about voice, again, character voice, every character has a lexicon of words that they will speak that are in their domain. And it's, of course, shaped by a lot of things like history and backstory and education and geography. So think about the words that your characters speak that might be different from the words that you speak. And that's part of the work of being a writer, is trying to develop this voice that sounds like it belongs to the story and not just to you. And that unless you're writing memoir, which is, you have more latitude to sound like yourself. But that is the trick. And I see a lot of us struggle with that when we have multiple characters. And that's also where we struggle with omniscient voice versus, character voice. It's like, who's telling the story? Whose words are these? Whose thoughts and feelings are these? Is a challenge for a lot of us to figure out. I just pulled out this example because Lori Moore is one of my favorite short story writers, and she always has interesting word choices every time. And again, while some of them might seem like, who uses that word in regular conversation, they just work in her stories. At work, you will be lachrymose and distracted. You will shamble through the hall like a legume with feet. People will notice. I loved lachrymose, shamble, and legume are all just
that legume with feet reminds me of the Planters peanut guy.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what comes to my mind.
And it's funny, and she's trying to make you laugh. And then this like simple sentence, people will notice. And also this is written in the second person, so it's actually the character kind of talking back to themselves. So she's not talking to someone else. She's like saying, myself, I will be lachrymose and distracted. It's really funny. She's kind of, I wouldn't quite call her an experimental writer, but she takes some liberties. Another thing that I recommend is that we cut to the chase. So I do find writers kind of loading up their sentences with unnecessary words that don't add to the sort of clarity or energy of a sentence. I am guilty of this in my writing. Example. Oh, and a lot of these examples come from a book called Getting the Words Right by Theodore Reese Cheney, who is cited in a couple slides from now. We spent all of the entire morning caulking the boat for the purpose of making it watertight. This was the first time I'd ever done that job in my whole life. A lot of words to say, we spent all morning caulking the boat, a new experience for me. And a lot of these things, like if you just read your work to yourself the way you normally do, you might not catch them. You have to almost put yourself in a mindset. Okay, I'm really going to look at this paragraph. Is it written in a way that is clear? Is it necessary? Is there anything that can go? I find an immense amount of words can go when I get to that. But it's like I almost have to put on mental glasses and look at it through that lens. These are what I call weak filler words. They kind of preface sentences and offer information that just kind of gets in the way of getting to the point as well. So phrases that start with things like there was, there is, there was a man with a scary expression walking up my steps. Revise, a man with a scary expression walked up my steps. If I were to really revise the sentence, I would describe the expression, but we're getting rid of the there was, and you see nothing is lost, right? It's just get it out of the way. Same thing, there was a battle taking place, a battle ensued. Better yet, show the battle. Stop it, my cat. Is this making sense? If you want me to, if anyone has any questions or you want me to slow down. It's a little bit like being back in 8th grade English class, I'm sorry. This is a big one for me. This one, I feel like I could stretch this into a class because it does somewhat relate to point of view, right? So perceptual words and this idea of locus of perception. And this is something we've talked about already in discussing point of view. So there are, again, I talked about it earlier when I said, like she heard a bell ringing. What does that bell ringing sound like? When you call attention to this act of observation, she noticed, she saw, she observed, she heard, she felt, she reflected, she thought, she understood. All you're doing is filtering the information to a degree. You're not putting us right into the observation. Does that make sense, first of all? If you say she noticed, what I'm thinking about is the act of her noticing, rather than what she notices. Okay, so this is a perceptual thing. So the goal is to go through your work and remove these from the places where it is pulling the reader away from the action or the observation. And it is really subtle, but it makes a huge difference. And when you pull them out, and sometimes it forces you to revise a sentence in a whole new way because it's like, okay, well now what? You'll find that the content, is richer and more active. So this is where I'd like us to do an exercise. So I don't have a slide for it.
I was going to ask, can you give us a couple of examples first? I'm just, what you would shift over to instead of like she noticed, or.
So let's do this together. Let's see if we can do this together. So give me a perceptual phrase. It can be using the senses. She saw, she heard, she tasted, she noticed, she thought, she reflected upon. Somebody just start with that and then we can figure out where to go. So just give me a perceptual word. So think of the senses. She heard, she what?
Oh, she smelled a rose.
Okay, so she smelled a rose. Okay, so instead, what we want to focus on is the scent of the rose. What does a rose smell like?
Perfume.
Okay, it smells like perfume. What else does it smell like? To someone who enjoys the smell of roses.
I like to smell freshly sanded oak.
We could even say, we could qualify how a rose smells. It's delicate. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's, so a delicate, the delicate
scent of something wafted over her.
Okay, see, here's where we're going. So the delicate aroma of her grandmother's roses wafted through the backyard, or wafted to her from the backyard, instead of she smelled roses. And it's not, and that's, again, not, maybe that's a too simple description, but okay, let's try heard. Let's try sound. Okay, what is somebody going to hear? What is your character going to hear?
Traffic.
Okay, what does traffic sound like?
Roar, rumble, whooshing sounds.
Okay, and then so how does the roar and rumble reach your character's ears?
Can be abruptly if you step outside.
Where are they, basically? How's it coming to them? Are they in the middle of traffic? Are they overhearing it from a distance?
You stepped outside and heard the roar of traffic.
So the roar and rumble of traffic pierced the silence of the day, or something like that. Yeah. Okay, so then let's try another one. So I want to drive this one home because it's really simple, but really hard at the same time. Let's go with another perceptual.
Did you say that thought would be one of them?
Yes.
Can we do that? Because that's what I want to understand how that would work.
And sometimes it's okay to do she thought, to clarify. But okay, so what is something your character is thinking? She thought.
She thought that she saw a look of pity on the woman's face.
Okay,
well, that's got two of them in there.
It does, but what does a look of pity look like? How would you describe that?
Well, I originally wrote that, and then I changed it because I realized the look of pity, I should describe what that look was. That she saw the woman stared at her and then looked away.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. I like that.
Her inner eyebrows went up and her head tilted, chin fell down.
And you could still say something like, she looked at her the way you might look at something you would pity. You know what I'm saying? You can use an image. I was going to say something that I thought was offensive, like a homeless person. But there are people too.
Well,
she felt that
it's harder.
She felt the woman looked at her like a homeless dog.
Okay, so how about instead of felt, just the woman's eyes softened on her like she was staring at a homeless dog or something like that. Again, these are off the top of our minds. They're not that great. Really, here's another one, Kelly. So in my own work, one of the things my editor called out was reflected. She reflected on that meeting that she'd had with this woman. She's like, just go into the meeting. That day she met so-and-so, she walked into the cafe and there she was. Instead of, she reflected on like that, all that does is pull us away. Thought's a little harder because there are instances where you can say it, but you're right. It's like, what is the subject of what we're trying to observe here? And can we describe that? So what about, and I do actually have a couple more slides on it later, but taste, let's see, taste, sounds. Well, let's just go with sight. Let's see if we can make one. So she noticed is a big one, right? She noticed, what did she notice? Something in your book. Anyone?
She noticed the bloody knife in his hand.
Okay. She noticed the bloody knife in his hand. Okay. And
I think that's it, Tommy.
I was going to say, that sounds like yours. So let's say they're in the scene and he's behind a counter. So I'm just making this up now. Okay. Tommy emerged from behind the counter holding a bloody knife. Her heart pounded, or what's the reaction to it? So again, you know what I'm saying? Is this making sense?
Yeah.
So would you guys humor me and do you all have access to one of your manuscripts right now?
I do.
Okay.
No.
Nothing, not at all, nowhere near you?
I know Mike does. I know John does. John does.
No, wait, I'm gonna pull up something of my own and put myself on the line here. Let me see if I can find, I'm gonna see if I can find a noticed or something in mine. I'm just, wait, let's find a heard. Okay. Hold on. Almost there, I swear.
I've got one.
You do?
Yeah.
Well, what I was going to have us do is each of us look in our own work and see if you can find one instance of saw, noticed, heard, or another perceptual word, and see if you can rewrite just one instance in your own work. But if anyone is not have their work handy, I was going to offer you one of mine. So hang on. Go back up here. All right, well, we'll see if this is, I don't know if this will work, but I'll try it. It even has my editor's notes in it. Okay. There's like already things I can see right away. Okay, so here we have Zoe shucked off her sweater. She was always taking things off, Justine noticed. Like, could we get rid of it there? Also, I was noticing Hecate looked thoughtful. That one could be rewritten. So I would say try to rewrite a sentence in your own. If not, try to rewrite one of mine. If you don't have yours handy, John, feel free. Any sentence that you feel.
So I can't pull up my stuff when you're sharing your screen.
If you hit escape, it'll drop the.
Okay.
Did that work?
Yes. Okay.
All right, so try and.
Sometimes you have to use an adverb in these things sometimes, even though I know you tell you not to.
Sometimes there's a place for everything sometimes.
Okay. Oh, so where is? Be right back. I'm gonna attack a pea fever. Be right back.
It's fine. We're all just writing.
I'm gonna sneeze like crazy. Hold on.
Okay, so finish up what you're working on.
Will we be able to share our screen?
Yeah, you can actually. If that's easier.
Okay.
Make sure I have it there. Okay. Well, so you want to start then, since you're.
Sure. I'm gonna see how this is done. Sharing my screen. Okay. Where the heck do I do that? I don't see it. Oh, share screen. Ah, darn it.
You have to have the document open first.
I see. Well, it is open. I just didn't find. I had
It's at
trouble
the
finding
bottom,
where
yeah.
the share screen. Okay, screen share. There it is. This is the original, and here's the revised. And I highlighted the words that I've changed.
So the blue is the revised?
Yeah.
I heard a solid thunk, saw the man tilt and fall to his side unmoving. Shannon stood before me. From the darkness issued a muted thunk. The sailor staggered up and fell to his side. Yep, I like it. I mean, it's simple. It's really not that complicated, but it's just focusing.
I shall save it. That's my work in progress.
Good.
How do I unshare screen?
Just go back to the same button where you shared screen and you should be able to stop share.
Whoops.
Or else we're held captive.
Where the heck is it? Oh,
If you move your
stop
cursor.
share. I got it.
Okay. All right. Who else would like to share next? You don't have to share a screen. You can just read your sentence to us. All right. I'll start calling on you. How about Sharon? And I've muted you all while we were writing. So.
Okay.
Oh, wait. Sharon's going first and then Mike. Sharon, you're still muted. There you go.
Sorry. Okay. She noticed a twisted car and a motorcycle suspended in a tree. That was my original sentence.
Okay.
Then I say, a twisted car sat upon a pile of rubble next to her, and a motorcycle was suspended from the one remaining tree.
Much better. Good work. All right. Now, Mike, did you want to go?
Yeah, I used yours for, we said Hecate looked thoughtful, and Zoe continued talking to him some more about what he had done. Okay, and here's my change. Instead of Hecate looked thoughtful, Hecate slowly rubbed his chin. Zoe continued, accusatory words erupting from her mouth like a machine gun.
Awesome. Thank you. Who would like to go next? Anyone? Kelly?
That was kind of horrifying. I just did a search on the word saw in my manuscript. Like, oh my God. There's so many.
It's hard.
But no, it's fine. I have more work to do. That's good. So the sentence I had was, one afternoon as I got into the car, hair matted with chlorine, my mom and I saw a lone figure at the top of the stairs. And I changed it to, one afternoon as I got into my mom's car, my hair matted with chlorine, a lone figure appeared across the parking lot at the top of the switchback stairs.
Beautiful. And even appeared feels menacing in a way that, I like more than I saw. Perfect. Good job. Diana, do you want to try?
So the sentence started out, I immediately knew this form fit my mission. And I changed it to, this form fit my mission like a broken in shoe.
Perfect. Love it. Signe, you want to try? I know I'm putting you on the spot, so if it didn't come, it's okay.
I found a lot of sentences that I edited while I was looking, and I just am having trouble finding an example that fits what we're talking about.
And that's fine. I mean, again, putting you on the spot is not easy, but I know that it's fine. But thank you for trying. How about Lizzie?
I tried. I was thinking about yours, Jordan, and I don't have it up right now, but I think it was what was it? As Hecate, I think I put instead of like thoughtful. I think I had it like as Hecate pondered, either pondered or pondered this revelation. Zoe pressed on. So just kind of maneuvering sentenced around. So
I like it.
Kind of feeling it around.
Well, and it's that thing like, what does looking thoughtful look like? It's obviously, it's like, can you articulate these details to yourself? And sometimes it takes, obviously, like when I draft a story, I'm just in storytelling mode. You need to go. You're really annoying.
Yeah, mine is here also judging me.
This one's just like,
they're everywhere.
Where's the food? They're everywhere. Hi. Okay.
Yeah, because in your sent like before, the one before, she was just like, it was several sentences, and it was, it was, so I would imagine like the other one is like absorbing, pondering, maybe depending on, with a larger context, did this woman even know any of that was going on? Like, that's what I'm, wondering, like, what is her reaction? Is she shocked? Is she like, yeah, I knew it? I don't.
Right. Yeah. Well, and so there's a lot of places it could go. And
yeah, that's what's so fun.
But you can see, right, that looked thoughtful doesn't really show you anything. It just tells you something.
Right, exactly. Because you don't, like, you'd expect her to have a reaction because she kind of let loose a bit, So yeah.
She's the kind of the she knows the other woman's freaking out and she's kind of waiting for it to simmer down.
Got it. Yeah.
But
yeah. Right.
But still, I was like, as soon as I opened the page, I was like, oh, it looks thoughtful. That's awful. So anyways, not awful, but I need to change that. Anyone else want to try? John?
Yeah, I think I must have used the same line. I just put in, instead of the Zoe pressed on, ignoring Hecate.
Oh yeah.
That's good.
Just a different slant on, I think, the same thing.
Yeah, I like it. Good. Anyone else want to try? Mike, did we already, I'm like blanking. Did you already go? Yeah, you did mine. Okay, got it. Whew.
Oh, by the way, you use the word even twice in close repetition. You might want to get rid of one.
There too. See? Oh, I got lots of line edits to do. Lots of them. It's gonna take me a year just to go through the line edits, I swear. Anyways, Susan? And I muted you, remember.
And I had a couple, but I wasn't sure with the contact. She shrugged the sweater off her shoulders, a habit she'd perfected years ago whenever she was angry.
Nice. And what was the original?
I don't know. That was yours.
Oh, that was mine. I'm already like forgetting. I like that. Instead of she noticed. Yeah.
She noticed. Yeah. A habit she'd had perfected years ago.
Nice.
When angry.
Good. I like it. Rabia? Oops, you just muted yourself.
I'm going to pass on this one.
Okay. Well, I think you guys have done a good job. Let's go through a few more slides and then we'll get to Rabia's critique. But hopefully you're starting to get this gist, right? That the perceptual words actually pull us out of what's being perceived. Oh, I guess here was another example. She smelled bacon and eggs, could become the house reeked of the meaty sugar of bacon and the pungent tang of eggs. The focus is then on the reek of the food, not her sense of smell. Right? Okay, couple slides on sentence length, which refers to the rhythm part that Mark was asking about, and then we will wrap it up. So I see two kinds of things kind of most commonly. A lot of sentences of the same general length that create a monotonous feeling when you read it. So it's like da 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 da, and you just like, there's a kind of like you're on a horseback going like this. So it's something that takes reading your work to yourself, looking at it. The examples that I'm using here are examples of varying sentences that help show what kind of a different rhythm that it creates. So this again is from that book I was telling you about, Getting the Words Right. So the example is, he rappelled down the vertical face of the building, his boots beating a rhythm against the bricks. Boots, they'd be the death of him one day. Him and his damned boots. Okay, so you see we've got a long first sentence, which I like because it actually almost reflects what he's doing. It's got a gliding quality. He rappelled down the vertical face of the building, his boots beating a rhythm against the bricks. And that there too, his boots beating a rhythm against the bricks, boots beating a rhythm against the bricks. The sentence is doing what it's saying. How do they do this? It's amazing. Boots. Okay. So obviously in this case, we get to the repetition of boots is purposeful, and it's, you're being asked to look at this on purpose. It's the focus of the paragraph. So I like that. Boots then acts like a period. Then there's a shorter sentence. They'd be the death of him one day, and an even shorter sentence, him and his damn boots. Nice variety, different sentence lengths. When you read it to yourself, it's got an interesting rhythm. Okay. Another one, and these examples, which were taken from this book that I was telling you about, I think he is quoting the same book as well. And it has almost, I realized, almost the same sentence structure. The platoon of frightened young soldiers slithered under the barbed wire fence, rifles balanced across their arms. Krauts, they stopped moving. They stopped moving and breathing. So again, I'm not suggesting that you write your sentences to match this pattern. I'm just saying, notice that sentences have different lengths. And if they're all the same length, or they're all too short, or they're all too long, you get this, this jarring quality that the reader will start to feel like, you know. Okay, well, one more slide. Vagueness is another kind of death knell of tension. Anytime you have sentence vagueness, and you'll see, I probably have commented on some of the work in this class too, where I kind of cut out phrases like seems to, began to, decided to, right? Those are all just, again, kind of getting in the way of saying what you mean. So he seemed to not like the soup. Okay, well, he gagged as he tasted the soup, or even just simply he didn't like the soup. Just get rid of seemed. Seemed is a very, there are times where seemed is appropriate, where someone is trying to interpret someone's behavior, but most of the time you can actually just get rid of it, and you'll find that your sentences are stronger for it. Same thing where characters kind of begin an action, like he began to, he decided to, he, you know, appeared to. Those things also just kind of clutter up the sentence and don't get us to what we mean to be getting to. So
is gagged a perceptual word there?
Gagged is an action in this case, though it conjures
sort of like tasted, but no, it's
I'm trying to think if it counts as a, to me, gagged is an action.
But it's a feeling too.
It's an action. He's gagging.
I can see the action.
I'm thinking about it. I don't feel like gagging is it's a sensation you feel in your body, but in this case, it's acting as an action. It's not like an emotion. Like here, it's a verb, right? He gagged.
Yes.
Not he had a gagging sensation, which I think would be more of a feeling. But even here, if I would revise this again, I would say he gagged. So like, as he put the soup, as he lifted the spoon to his lips, he gagged at the taste or something like that, you know, to make it a little more, even stronger. We could like workshop sentences. We could do this for weeks. We could, there's so much work to be done. So that's a good start. As you can see, when I say tip of the iceberg, right? There's so much more. And I really do recommend Getting the Words Right, that book. I'll put it in the chat. I learned so much that it was like, what it did is it put labels to things I knew, but didn't know what they were called and had not really articulated to myself before. And it really helped me change a lot of these things in my writing, although as you saw by that one paragraph, not all of them. But that's because I have yet to go back and revise that yet. I'm trying to finish the draft of another story. And I think I'm actually like resisting going back and doing my edits. Okay. Go, you're being a bad boy. Go. My cat is driving me crazy. All right, let's take our 5-minute break and then we will talk about Rabia's critique. I'll be back. So we'll meet back here in 5:05.
Mark's still there?
So, Mike, are you from New Orleans?
Yeah, that's my hometown. I was born there. And Well, we came out here a long time ago. My dad was a salesman, so business was better in California. So we came here. I was just down there a little while ago. I had to go there for a funeral.
Your family or just friends?
That was a family. It was a cousin of mine. Yeah, it was. You know, you've got relatives and you have relatives. You know, I miss the ones that went out of their way to come visit me and call me, you know. And it's sometimes it seems like they're the first ones to go, you know. I mean, yeah.
Do you like California better than New Orleans?
Hold on just a second. Well, you know, I've been out here most of my life. I used to go back down south in the summers to help my grandfather. But you know, I like it because I went to school out here, so I like it. I like it better. I went to school with most of my friends here. You know. Hey, oh, in Alabama, do they have the Appalachian Mountains there?
Yeah, we actually live at the very tail end of the Appalachian chain.
Yeah, there's that
It just
trail. I always wanted to do that, you know.
walk that trail.
Yeah, yeah. I think
You must enjoy hiking.
yeah, that I like. I don't do as much of it as I used to, but I like it. You know, it's but the scenery, you know, back east, you know, it's gorgeous, especially in the fall, you know, with all the trees, the water. We need some of that water out here on the West Coast. We're drying up out here.
Yeah, we got plenty.
Yeah.
Believe me. Yeah, the Tennessee River runs right through this area. Man, you know, it's like a lake everywhere. Just only it's flowing.
I tell everyone when I get off the plane, usually I usually fly back there, but I can smell the water. You know, it's it's an advantage. You know, if they could figure out some way of shipping that out here to the West Coast.
Well, we can't use a pipeline apparently.
Yeah.
Pipelines are bad.
Yeah. But yeah, just about. There's a place called Morro Bay. Well, Mark, you probably know where that is. You know.
Yeah.
They're talking about building a. Well, actually, they've got some plans for a desalination plant there. They've got an old PG&E power plant. They're going to convert that to converting salt water to fresh water.
Morro Bay, California?
Yeah, Morro Bay.
I know, that's close to me.
You know where it is. Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, I've been there quite a lot. Used to
See
go to the
that?
Dragon conference down there.
See that picture out there? That's Morro Bay.
Oh, that's right. Sure, I
Yeah.
lived there. Oh, you really are. Oh, you really are right on the water. Show me that again.
Oh, okay.
Can I just come and stay with you?
Yeah, this is the Back Bay part of Morro Bay. But are you saying that there is a definitive plan that's like been approved and everything?
I don't know if it's been approved. I got a friend of mine that lives in Los Osos. He was the one that was telling me.
Who's your friend? That's actually where I live.
Sterling Heck. He's
Sterling.
a teacher too. He used to be a teacher up in Cascadero. What's that? There's another little town up there. I forget. Anyway.
Huh?
But yeah, he just mentioned it that they were tossing the idea around, and because of the water problem.
Yeah, no, I've heard about it too. I just didn't know if that would be exciting if that was getting ready to start.
Yeah, it would.
Mhm.
Most of the wells here in the Santa Maria area, a lot of them are drying up. And, you know, of course, that's causing a lot of problem in ag. You know, that's a big thing here. And then they're going to have to find some sort of solution because the issue's not getting any better.
Yeah. All right.
Few-
Well,
Fewer people.
Yeah,
what happened to the
would help.
here?
We got people leaving the state now.
Sorry. What the heck happened?
Yeah, I was just asking, I worked out of Slidell for a while, just off to the east in Mississippi. And that was about the hottest place I'd ever been in my life.
Did you work on oil rigs? Did you work on oil rigs?
No, I worked out at the test center at Michoud Test Center down in just out of Slidell.
Cool.
So,
I
yeah,
used to live in New Orleans too. So,
Oh, wow, you've been around.
yeah.
That heat, it's funny, the heat and humidity never really bothered me that much. Maybe because I was there younger, but yeah, it can be oppressive. It really can, You can be pouring down rain down there and you're still sweating.
Sorry, guys. Something new.
yeah. It's jumping into the pool at midnight and finding out that it was cooler outside of the pool.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's get back on track here. So,
Okay.
let's talk about Rabia's piece. Remember to start with the heat, what works for you, what you loved, what you liked, and then talk about what you'd like to see more of or less of. Sorry about my printer. It'll be done in a second. Who would like to go first? And remember, I will be timing us, but don't be offended when you hear the timer go off. Just wrap it up slowly. All right, Lizzie.
Yeah, Rabia, I really enjoyed it. I really, felt, with every diary entry, with, every experience, Charlene was going through, I got closer to her. I got closer to the character she became. And there was, I had more empathy for her. And I was once a teenage girl. And so I could really put myself, in those situations, like crushes and getting hurt by friends. And I thought you really brought some of those, experiences out, and talked, well about them. And I thought that undercurrent, with Ron, like right away, you start out, like with this, just this buzzing, of Ron. That's right, Ron, right? Or is Rob? No, Ron. Ron. Okay. And I loved how it just kind of came into her story, especially because this girl is vulnerable. She's, her friends betray her. She doesn't, what happened with Popular Boy, she just gets knocked over again by her stepmom, everything. And you can just, and again, I don't know what's going to happen, but my guess is that, again, she's, very vulnerable. All these things have happened, and then you've got this other type of world that she's kind of getting in on and fascinated with. So again, I'm really excited to see, what's gonna keep going on it. But I think it's a great start. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Who would like to go next?
I'll go next.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Okay. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was especially, in the beginning, I got sort of this bad vibe about that Ron fellow. I thought, it was sort of maybe something foreboding coming on later on down the road with him. And the other, I read, it read well with me. When I got to the part of the, there was, I think it was cherry pie. Was it cherry pie, or there was a lot of discussion on cherry pie and the tasting. After I read that, I was hungry. It was a great description, but I was thinking you might be better, less wordy there to just show it. Like what I was talking about here. You can get the same effect and then maybe keep the reader's attention a little bit better. But the description was really good, and the ending of it, I thought would make almost a really good suspense thriller. You got potential there, I think, of something like that. You know, you could really develop that and have people, you know, guessing about what's going to happen. You know, basically, that's it for me.
Thank you.
Pretty parts, but
Thanks, Mike.
Mhm.
Sharon. Oh,
So-
were you done, Mike?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay.
So Rabia, I was kind of fascinated by the way that you start your story very poetically and then jumped right into Ron, which I thought that was a perfect name to me for some guy who's going to be kind of creepy. I mean, not to say that we know for sure that he's creepy. That will come later, but we do know that he's kisses and tells, and that is, you know, that's interesting. But you jumped right from something poetic into this story, and we didn't have to wait very long, which is good to know where you were going. And I do like the way that you set it up, that she's a very vulnerable girl, alone. And so you set the scene for her being drawn in to him, and all that happens in the first couple of scenes. So that was pretty powerful. I think that it's very interesting for all of us who are women and who went through teenagerhood, not necessarily in the same way, but I think that your scenes are realistic. What's happened to her, her feelings are realistic. I do like the way that you use the diary. I'm not sure about this, and so I probably shouldn't say anything, but she writes very short entries. And it just seems like if that was her only friend, she might write longer entries because that is like her only real friend. So you might say more in some of her entries, I think. So I had fun reading it. I mean, I have to admit, it was just kind of fun. I mean, I don't read stuff about teenagers that often, although I am writing something about somebody who will be a teenager soon. So, so that is interesting for me to see that from that perspective. As far as recommendations, I did write this down, but I thought that your description of the cherry pie was so overwhelmingly good that yes, you did get hungry and want to eat it. You could smell it and taste it and all that stuff. So I know that you have the capability of doing that, and I would love to see you do it more often and disperse throughout your writing. So yeah, I think that there were a few comments about points of view, but I think you know that already about going from first to third. So not worth saying. Anyway, I would just encourage you to develop that and to use all your senses and turn on that capability that you have to make us really taste and smell and really enjoy all of that. So good job.
Thank you.
All right. Diana, would like to go next?
Yeah, I wanted to say that by the time I got to the end, I felt like I had a new insight, you might call it appreciation or whatever, for how a young girl like that gets obsessed with someone, or in this case it's on the party line, but it could just as easily maybe be on the internet in this in this era. And I felt, there were times that I felt frustrated with her, and I felt like my frustration was the frustration you feel universally with teenagers, because on the one hand they seem like they're growing up, and on the other hand they're so dense about things sometimes. And they make, choices that, aren't at all in their best interest. So I felt like there was a lot of realism in your story and in the writing. And the one thing that kind of stays with me is I couldn't tell if seeing the world through her eyes meant that this was kind of an unreliable narration of events, or whether actually the world was better than she realized, but she just hadn't figured it out yet because she felt, kind of down and out, or she was still, grieving and worried about the loss of her father. But I felt the mother-in-law, on the one hand, was someone I wouldn't have enjoyed having as, or a stepmother, I guess she was, as my, primary adult influence. But on the other hand, there was a way to see her as someone in a tough situation. The guy she was with left her with his kid. And what do you do with a kid, that isn't even yours, that you have to take care of? And so, I would have liked to have seen more about what the real situation was than just the perspective of the girl. But I thought, I thought you have a very good idea. And as I say, I felt even in this short reading, I felt already I had the empathy for the character and a little bit greater insight into that situation.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, Signe and then Kelly.
Not muted. So I really am so interested in the premise here. And by the way, I've never heard the bell, Jordan. So I've never heard it in any of our sessions. So if I go over,
I'll wave the phone at you.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'm so interested in this premise, and I didn't grow up in the 60s. I grew up in the 70s, and I didn't experience having a party line like that, but I do know, in terms of like within the house, listening in on phone calls. And I was so interested in Charlene, and how she keeps going back to it, and it's such a sort of dangerous thing, and is she going to get caught? And it made me think about Jordan's comment about the car accident and how she got off on the adrenaline rush, and wasn't scared and crying. And it made me think about her character and how what makes some people seek this adrenaline rush. What does that look like in a 16-year-old girl in the 60s? And along those lines, I was thinking it could really go deeper with her, especially with the vehicle of the diary. I feel like I'm so interested in the character, but I feel like we're really on the surface of her, and I feel like there could be so much more underneath. For example, like we hear about Ron's sexuality and what turns him on, but we see nothing about her. Is she turned on by what she's hearing? Does she go masturbate? Is she feeling, like what's going on with her sexuality? She's 16, right? And she's hearing all this stuff. And I'm just wondering, does it stir things? Or if not, it's the 60s, right? So you don't really, there's so much repression going on. And so does she feel ashamed, or is there, does she feel turned on and she's ashamed, or if there's a lack of, how getting just there's so much, especially with it set in the 60s, you know, in terms of like, is she conflicted about it? So I just felt like there's a huge sort of, you know, below the surface that you could mine that would be so interesting here, if you wanted to. And I think, yeah, so I just wanted to see more of her inner, you know, and then the foreshadowing in terms of like, well, is she gonna meet this guy in real life? Are they gonna come together? I kind of assume they will. What's gonna happen there? So I was really interested in the story, and, you know, would love to see more.
Thank you.
All right, Kelly.
Hi, Robbie. Yeah, a lot of the comments Signe and Diana expressed better than I could have. So, but I felt the same way. I was really intrigued by the characters, and I think, and because there's some complexity around it, and like Signe was just saying, like there's so much depth and exploration that could happen with them, or in so many different areas, but it's already there. Like there's like a weirdness in a lot of the characters that I really love, and it's almost like I want that to get turned higher, or at least to be able to see the more channels within that with the different characters. I wasn't sure that I had a handle on Dorothy yet as a character, and maybe this is similar to what Diana was saying about the lens through which we're seeing Dorothy, because it's all through Charlene. Because there were moments where Dorothy didn't really seem all that bad to me, like as a human being or as a character, in the way that she was so awful from Charlene's perspective. And I think I would have liked to see more of their interactions in scenes, because some of what we get is Charlene's description. Like there was a moment where she says, Dorothy always decided what was good. And I kind of wanted to see that in action, even if what we're seeing conflicts with Charlene's perception of it, which goes to what Diana was talking about, the unreliability. Like I felt like there was sort of more that this could play with in terms of Charlene's unreliability or not, like, but she as a character sees and understands versus what we're seeing and understanding. So I think in general, I'm excited to see more scenes with Charlene in action, like her confusion and her awkwardness. Like more of the scene with the Raoul. And I think seeing her more in scene could allow me to even experience more empathy with her as a character. Definitely wanted to know more about her reaction to hearing the stuff on the phone. I almost felt like Ron and the other guy in some ways were like stealing the scenes a little bit, because I'm like, who are these men? Well, who are like these men who talk about sex in that way to each other? Like that's like an unusual situation. So I was like, who are they? So they were like pulling focus in a little bit. So I was curious about them. I also was curious about just Charlene's relationship to things like what's thrilling and what's exciting, and kind of what that means to her, or how they mean to her. Feels like that could happen in more scenes too. Just like small little things, but I thought maybe the opening with the phone, like that scene could maybe be tightened up a bit, like to just make it a little bit more like us not really understanding what's happening. And this is like the most minor comment. I feel silly for even bringing it up, but the Anderson's pea soup reference, which immediately I sort of loved because I have like physical and emotional associations with that. But then it started to make me think of, is that supposed to be my cue up to geography or place? But then it seems like we're not there geographically at all. So I was sort of curious about that, why that specific detail. But yeah, overall, I'm very excited to see where this goes. So thank you.
Thank you.
Susan.
I'm unmuting. I have to go ditto. I love I got a wonderful sense of this extremely vulnerable and lonely teenage girl who's pretty much lost so much, kind of struggling with it, and how vulnerable she is, and how I think, as Diana said too, how you moved her vulnerability into a sense of tension with the danger of having her listening to Ron and this weird guy, and that scene with the flasher / predator that tried to get her, how she ran away. I mean, I got that sense of panic from her, but also the sense of a foreboding that, wondering whether that might even have been Ron and what was going on and whether he knew about it, because you can tell on those little party lines that people are listening in. So he had to have known that if she was clicking on and off and on and off and on and off, 20 seconds or half an hour at a time sometimes. So there's something I think that might be able to get a little bit more highlighted there to bring the tension up maybe. But I again, I said, I think you set up her character really well. And I really understood it, and the obsessive behavior that she had. It's kind of a warning sign that that was very obsessive to do that constantly, and a warning sign to us that there's something a little more going on with her than just being lonely. And so I think probably as you develop it a little bit later, you might not have wanted to do that now. That's something I really like. The hints of her own self-sabotage that you had in there with her. I didn't try hard to try to get into the sorority kind of thing. There was some other small, wanting love and acceptance and yet pushing everybody away at the same time, afraid of it. Really, I thought an interesting juxtaposition. I would have liked to have, and I think I noted this in the my notes. I would have liked to have seen or heard, because she was such a writer and her poetry was so good. I expected more. I wanted more writing in her diary about some of the scenes. Yours to pick. And the phone just went up, so I'm just going to say thank you. I can't wait to see how this turns out.
Thank you.
All right, who would like to go next? John.
Okay. I think I probably had a little different take on this than most people. And I looked at, at the topic that was coming through, which was a young high school junior and a relationship between a maybe sexually experienced man. But then, as I read through, I began to realize, that's not what Ron really is. He's on the phone for hours a day. He's not rich. He's on a party line, so he's doing all kinds of things, and that must be his job. If he's doing that. So okay, I'm thinking Ron is like a sex talker. He gets on the phone, does the phone sex with people. The party line's kind of weird, and actually that's a really nice topic. You've got, I would say, a winner. If you could make a pitch to somebody in Hollywood, that that would run like a you'd have them at your doorstep. There's some interesting things that you talk about, a disturbing dream she had, and then I noticed that you were equating Ron and her father. So that's kind of an interesting aspect too. I'm not sure how that would turn out, but that was kind of kind of an interesting aspect of the whole story too. I don't know. And I like the way that when you went through and you're using diary entries, and that's like looking at something for, she's writing something, but they're like being a voyeur. We're looking at reading her private messages, which is what she's doing on the phone with this other guy. So you've got this double entendre. You're sitting inside of the story. Yeah, it was, I just enjoyed it. It was fun. It was great. And I can see that one building out. Just a great rom-com. Of course, you got to bring it back so that she's really not with that guy. Maybe it's her father she's listening to, and Ron is the guy she actually meets or something. But yeah, it's good.
Thank you. Mark, did you go yet? No.
No, I had a coughing fit. I generally don't like to go this late, but but I will. I'm unmuted? Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Rabia, you've crafted a very deep story about a self-absorbed teen. Now, this is my take. You hit several psychological aberrations. Charlene seems to be too comfortable remaining a victim. She cradles slanted evaluations and considers only herself. which makes a dynamic character. I'm sure you'll flesh out her backstory along the way, letting the reader find out how Charlene became such a damaged person. The diary would be a good place to dribble that out, starting with some minor things and then the lead to the big kazoo at the dark of night, crisis at the soul, point of no return part of the book. Not knowing the rest of the story, how it proceeds, I see you could make this, like Mike said, a psychological thriller, as this mortally wounded character swirls deeper into a vortex of danger created by herself, her poor choices. It would make quite an engaging cautionary tale. The disembodied voice on the phone is a great device, as everybody said. It leaves readers strongly wanting to see how that plays out, as in real life, nothing good is going to come of it. I guess Charlene's going to stalk him. And she's the one who's being the creepy one listening to him. I heard a couple people, I think, say that they thought Ron was creepy. Ron's not being creepy. Charlene's being creepy. The opening poem, a few points on story construction. The opening poem's a bit long. Consider only using some pertinent lines you want to stress so they don't get lost in the reading. You start reading a whole long poem to start a book is not a hook, but maybe just 2 sentences, italics, and then the story starts with a hook, which you have there, but it comes too late. I suggest making sure the adults aren't cameo walk-ons characters in the story. So far, they've come across either creepy, angry jerks or disinterested. And the majority of people are not that. I look at Charlene and the comment about the clothes. We don't have any indication of what their economic situation is. Maybe that's all the stepmother can afford, and she's not appreciative. That the clothes were probably fine, but they weren't new, so entitled. There are several sections in which you provide some sort of explanations of social and personal lives. See if you can bring those out by the actions or interactions, let the characters talk, think, and move, show those. Charlene needs to show at least some empathy for others, just to make her a 3-dimensional character, and show her making some effort with her stepmother and Margot and the girl who wrecked her father's car. Her only emotions in that scene during the event were jealousy and envy. She seems to hold that feeling of entitlement for relationships she's made no effort to foster. You've divulged a lot of information in the first chapter. It may lead readers to think they know where the story is going, or at least infer it. I think your readers want surprises and slow burn revelations along the way. Don't give too much away. Charlene needs some redeeming qualities, but she can be the creepy stalker. I'd like to hear you tell us your version, or what your vision is for where this story is going. I'd like to know. Anyway, reading this story, it kind of brought to mind the Kathy Mattea song, Standing Knee Deep in a River and Dying of Thirst.
Nice.
Can you say that again? I didn't hear.
The Kathy Mattea song, Standing Knee Deep in a River and Dying of Thirst.
Right. Okay. Got it.
Thanks, Mark. Did everyone go beside me? Okay. Awesome. Thank you. What I always like to remind you that when you've gotten a lot of the same feedback, that's a good sign. It means you know what you have to work on. There's less gray area. And I have a lot of similar perspectives, but I want to say I 100% believed this teenager, because not only was I a teenage girl, and do I not remember it very vividly, but my son is becoming a teenager before my eyes, and oh, it's all coming back to me because it's in my house. Boy, it happens earlier than you think. And so to me, I actually felt like the preoccupation, the self-sabotage, the always finding all the adults to be faulty. I could break out pages of my journal and they would read almost identically. So I really felt she was believable. And in that way, that those particular qualities, there's a kind of narcissism to teens that they hopefully grow out of. But, you know, so though I do think that as a writer, we have to ask ourselves, like, is my character coming across, like, whether or not they're likable, can the reader follow her? Does they care about her? Do they want things for her? And I would say yes. I thought you had lots of aspects of tension that are great and that will be wonderful to build out more. The relationship with the stepmother. I did find, even though I did want to see her more, I did get a totally passive aggressive vibe from her. She's super and controlling. And even though it was subtle, you know, I loved that scene where she goes like to get her address, and she claims it's from a real store, but it smells like it's not. And she doesn't take her with her. That was the first clue. First, I was like, why wouldn't she take her with her? But then I realized that's the character. She doesn't want her to see where she got it. She's controlling it. And I loved that after the fact. I was like, oh, okay, I see what's happening here. The relationship with the friends, not, I liked the dynamic that the popular boy asked her out, and then the friends made her doubt that it was real. And so then she kind of rejects it, even though it could have been a real thing. I liked that dynamic. And Ron, so I did not get the sense you were building a romance between them. But I could be wrong, or a inappropriate romance or whatever, assault or something. I don't know what's going to happen, but I forget who said it. I also wanted to know, I thought that her reaction to listening to him would be much more up and down. There would be embarrassment, there would be titillation, there would be a more robust response, a complex response, especially at that time of life when you're already grappling with those questions inside yourself. So I wanted to see her grapple with that. And it could be in the diary, or it could be just in her thoughts as she listens. I felt like the tone of voice actually changed sometimes to seem almost omniscient or adult when when you're describing the conversation with Ron. Like, it's almost like how I thought an adult would consider these kinds of overheard conversations, rather than how a teen would. And I think for me, that was one of the biggest areas of revision that I would recommend, is really trying to tighten up the voice to sound A, more like her in all instances, and B, to ask yourself that question, am I trying to go omniscient in places where I have that all-knowing authorial voice, or am I going to stay up internal to my character? Because there are places where you sort of pull back and out. And I know you have questions, and in a minute I'll answer those. But that was for me the biggest kind of jarring point. And then I would really encourage you to, like, especially since I think your audience is going to be adult readers, or maybe young adult, to really go further with the sexual descriptions. Like, actually let us hear what he's saying, and don't be afraid to don't be obscure and don't be coy, just go for it, so that we can actually see her legitimate response to what he's actually saying. Because for me, actually talking about it in the abstract made it hard to, I didn't really feel like it was, I didn't have the reaction I wanted to have. And then a few places I would just hope that you would just maybe flesh out from summary into scene. But I really, there's so much great potential here. It's like, it's just brewing with complexity. I can't wait to see where you go. So, okay, now we turn it over to you, and you can ask questions, answer questions.
When I raised my hand, I was going to ask a question, because I was confused what you were saying about the POV.
Yeah.
Because I wrote it, well, I have to explain something. I wrote the whole thing in first person originally, and it was like 40 pages in first person. Then I went back and changed it to omniscient. And then in order to have the first person, I put the diary. I added that in at the last minute. So that's why the POV was really confused, because there were places where I probably didn't change it where I was supposed to change it. But just now, when you were talking about that it sounded omniscient, it was omniscient. So I'm not sure.
There's no problem with it being omniscient. It's just that there are locations where I want to stay inside her head instead of outside of it. And I marked those places. So for me, what you have to do is regulate the distance with your reader. For me, I would recommend that you, unless you need the omniscient for later scenes to describe stuff going on with Ron, I don't know that you really need it, because the diary provides can provide information that the omniscient narrator might otherwise. Because like, you're really staying mostly up inside her, and then eventually are you going to have his perspective, or will it always be from hers?
I thought it was always from the omniscient. So that's where I'm confused, because unless it's in the diary, the omniscient was telling the story.
There were times where you used the pronoun my and things like that.
That was just a mistake, though.
Because I didn't change it when I first wrote all.
So let's think about omniscient as a camera that zooms in and out away from the narrator, or from the story, the character, okay? And so, yes, what I'm saying is you can use the omniscient, so you can pull out and back and tell us information that is not coming filtered through the character. But there are places where, for me, I wanted to be inside her head and the omniscient isn't doing it for me. So it's about asking yourself, where can the camera be pulled back and where can the camera be zoomed up close? And so that takes balance. And that's one of the reasons why I often tell people to not write in the omniscient in your first draft, because it's too, it lends itself to this confusion of, am I close, am I far, am I close, am I far? So for me, being up inside the third person in deep point of view is simpler. But if you want to take that challenge on, all I'm saying is you're probably going to get reader feedback, which will tell you some places where the omniscient pulls them too far away and they want to be up closer to the character. And all that means is that when you're filtering information, it's coming through either through the character's thoughts, feelings, and perceptions, or it's information being told to us as though from an outside source. And that's where the omniscience comes in. So omniscient just sort of means you have the versatility to go in or out. And when you are out too far, I start to lose touch with the character. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
And we're going to talk next week too, so we can talk more about this.
Okay, I want to thank everybody for all their comments because everything helped. And I know, this is my first time I'm writing fiction, so I have a lot of work to do.
Oh, yeah.
I want to explain that I started with the kernel of a story, and the kernel was having a guy on a crossed wire. So I realized I didn't explain it very well. What really wasn't on the party line, he was actually a crossed wire. So that's why clicking on and off, he didn't hear her.
I see.
And he didn't hear anything. And so in real life, I had this when I was a teenager where there was somebody on a crossed wire for a very long time, many months. So that's where I got the kernel of the idea. And I'll have to explain that better in the story. I really appreciate the feedback about the character because I'm trying to figure out the arc of the character, and she's starting off a victim, and eventually she'll be gaining self-love and making boundaries. And the stepmother, I realize it's confusing because in 15 pages, it's hard to put everything in there, explaining everything. And the stepmother is actually a narcissist who, kind of like Dracula, where Dracula can be really charming, but then all of a sudden he'll attack. So that's what she does. And so I was trying to make her into sometimes she's nice, but sometimes she's really after whatever she needs. And in the story, she's being paid to take care of Charlene. She's being paid by the father who is divorced from her, but there's things going on in that arena where he's actually paying her to keep her.
That's interesting.
Robbie, if that's your first fiction, that's pretty damn good.
Yeah, it is.
Thank
good.
you. Yeah, it's the first literally in my entire life. As a kid, I never wrote anything.
Wow. Yeah,
fictional.
you should be really proud of yourself, and you've got, like so much great feedback. I think will be really fun to see your next iteration.
Thank you.
And it's always fun to have that. I think adolescence is such an interesting time to write about from a fictional perspective because it's a time of so much change and so much complexity, and all the skills you need you don't yet have, or many of the skills you need you don't yet have. So that it's like great for tension from that perspective. And I love that. So, well, thank you for being on the hot seat this week. And
I got one more question for Robbie. What's your target audience?
I think it's women, because there'll be a love story as well.
but not young adult.
And there'll be kind of a thriller part. So, but not young. I don't think it will be. I don't know.
I mean, I sensed it was for an adult audience because of the sexual content, although young adult fiction has a lot of sexual content these days. So
right.
Could be either. All right. Cool. Well, I just always like to end my class by saying thank you for the incredible gift of sharing your work with me and trusting us to, receive it and give you feedback. And witness what you're trying to do and help you be accountable. So thank you so much for taking this class. I can't believe how fast it went. It's just like, how is it over already? And, you know, for those of you who aren't sure if you're taking another class, just stay in touch. Let us know how you're doing. Keep in touch with me. But let's finish with setting goals, even though we won't necessarily be touching base with it next week. You can still be accountable to yourself, and feel free to email us if you did have a successful goal meeting session. All right, Signe. Oh, yeah.
So the goal is to just keep doing what we're doing. We are having, you know, sessions and working through what we're doing. So keep doing it.
Awesome. I love it. John? Oops, you're muted, my friend.
I try to get something written this week.
Great.
Anything.
Anything? Grocery list? All right.
Do it too.
Susan.
Oh, boy. I think I'm going to, well, I'm going to be writing. You know, I hadn't realized how ill-equipped I've been to do this.
Oh, no.
I know. Well, I mean, I feel daunted. I feel daunted a little bit by how much I have to learn, how quickly to get going on this kind of thing, you know. But I'm good. I'm okay. It's just one of those weeks.
I understand. I hear you, but no, I disagree that you're not equipped. I think you're very well equipped. So,
Well, thank you. But
I hear
Yeah.
you. I mean, here I am teaching this class, and I showed you my crappy
Yes.
manuscript page, and I'm like, I got to come clean. I have much work to do as well, you know. So
yeah, it's wild. But anyway, so I'm going to, you know, I'm going, you know, as you know, signed up for the class. I'm going to be doing that, and so I'm going to just write all the way through it. Hopefully, I'll have a ton of work to share. Well, 15 pages anyway.
all right, looking forward to it. Good. Kelly.
I think I'm going to continue trying to practice taking a break. And so I think I'm going to not try to not write this week.
I like that, and I admire your boundaries and like learning when to say no to things, because that's a good one too. Mike.
I'm gonna start research for another story.
Great. Or another story. Lizzie.
Yeah, just what Signe said. Yeah, but it worked, and I'm so excited. So I think we have a really good work strategy and plan, and yeah.
Good. Awesome. Rabia.
Well, thanks to everybody's input, I'm going to stick with the story. I wasn't sure whether to stick with it or start with something else, and just keep on going with it. Try to figure out more of the plot and rewrite some things.
Great. Diana.
I'm going to finish the, you know, the latest revision of the essay, and then I think I want to set it aside and, you know, maybe look at an idea for doing something different. Just, you know, try it out.
Great. I love it. And Sharon?
Well, I always like to try to take something that you taught in your class. I know it's like I'm trying to suck up to the teacher, but really I do enjoy that. And I think I want to look through and see, what did you call them, perceptual words, and see if I can find any and change them around, and then continue to also make some progress on writing.
Sounds good. I love it. You can suck up all you want. Mark.
Okay, when my editors get it back to me, and my editor gets back to me, I'll be working on the rewrites of Tommy Blue. I'm going to continue on my work in progress. I'm at 15,000 words now. I'm for the next class, try to get another 15,000 done. I've got to work on that magazine short story I've been commissioned to do, and I'm going to make a word list, all the ones from this lesson.
Nice.
And search for those things.
I like it.
Uh,
Good. All right. Well, wait, Mike, did I get you? Yeah, I did. Did I miss anyone? Okay. There's a lot of you. Again, thank you all. I look forward to seeing those of you who are coming back in July. And just to note that my website, jordanrosenfeld.net, will be updated probably by the end of June with a classes page where all my classes that like for the foreseeable future will be listed and easy to sign up for. So if you're ever in the mood for another one, you can check them out. And otherwise, you know how to reach me. And oh yeah, Sharon.
I have a question that might be interesting to everybody here. When people are finishing books, we would have no way to like know what their books are, where they were published, that kind of. I would love to be able to look you guys all up, see if when you get your books published, how we might access them. And I'm wondering, Jordan, is there a little place you can have on your website where we can go to it and look up, you know, all your students who publish books and where they are and that kind of thing?
That would be nice, except that my website has already been designed and they're done designing it. But what about in the Facebook group? Are you all in the Facebook group?
Oh,
Yeah.
Are you not on Facebook? Because I
Yeah.
have a group where all my classes are, all the students who wish to be on Facebook are in. And the other option is, what I would say is, I don't know that everyone wants to share their email addresses, but I would say if you would like to share your email address, so here's what I'll do. I'll send out, when I send out the slides and stuff, reply to it with, yes, I would like to share my email address, or no, just to me. And then those people who would like to share their email addresses, I can just put them on a list on a Google Doc or something. No hard feelings if you don't want to share, that's fine. Susan?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. This is my first foray into all of this.
Oh,
it's been
your first
fabulous.
one? Well, thank
And
you.
And I've learned so much. I do feel daunted, but that's because I'm so new at it.
I still feel daunted if it makes you feel better. It never goes
Well-
away. You just write through it.
I'd like to make the same offer I did to that I made to the students in the last class of my previous work. Tommy Blue should be out in July, and if you want a copy of it, hard copy signed by the author, I would gladly send it to you if you email me your name and address. And my email address is very simple. It's my name as you see on the screen at gmail.com.
Go for it, Gmail. Awesome. Thank you, Mark. It's very kind of you to share your
Thank you.
Yeah, it is.
Yep. And everyone knows where I am. So anytime you need anything, reach out, and have a great rest of your week and weekend. And I look
I'll
forward
miss you all.
Yeah, I'm gonna miss you guys. Those of you I don't see you again soon.
I know.
So stay in touch,
Everybody-
okay?
Hope everybody has a good summer.
Thanks, Mike. You too.
Yeah.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
Jordan.
Thank you.
Thank
Getting
you.
very
Thank
nice to
you.
get to know all of you.
Yeah.
Bye,
Everybody.
guys.
A lot of
Adios.